I'm Charles Dennis. This is Paid to Dream, and here's the show that's going to get higher ratings than the Dan Aykroyd interview with Mr. Tom Kenny himself in his bomb shelter.
Oh yes, we'll see about that, Charles. I don't know. I'm much more invisible and under the radar than Dan is.
Well, it's in many ways. I mean, it was soccer that brought us together originally, you know.
Yes, that's true. Our mutual love of soccer. No, it's interesting when you have kids. You know, you kind of wind up in all kinds of places you never thought you would wind up.
Well, I just didn't understand what my daughter was doing on a soccer team with your son. You know, she was like Ferdinand. She'd be down there in the goal, just sort of looking up and looking and wondering, Dad, is it over yet? Can we go home?
Right, and as a lifelong spaz, I'm always surprised when my children show any semblance of physical coordination whatsoever.
Ditto, brother. All both. We voice folk, you know, definitely don't come from an athletic background. Although I must say, I've gone on to have friends who were, you know, former professional ball players and stuff, and I think they like me because I'm not a jock. And
you're not.
They don't want to sit there and have to tell them what the game was like when they played. No, they're like, yeah, this is what I really wanted to do.
Exactly. Well, you know, while other kids were out playing sports, you know, we were locked in the house watching old movies.
Well, that, and I mean, I was, you know, when I was 8, I made my radio debut. I mean,
I know that.
I always have this sort of, whenever SpongeBob comes up, I remember my disgrace. I was on this kids' fantasy show on the radio in Toronto called Peter and Flip, and there was one episode where we were under the sea, and Marjorie Purvey, the woman who wrote and directed and created the show, taught us that, you know, something could go wrong in the studio. We are going out live. You must always be ready with a line, you know, and it was like, wow. And
no pressure.
We were doing the undersea episode, and the studio clock inside the booth fell and clattered to the floor.
Killed Marjorie.
Well, and Charles, at the age of 10, said, "Gee, Mr. Flip, one of the octopus's testicles fell down." And I looked up at the booth, and I saw that the guy, you know, doing all the controls, his head was buried in his hands, his shoulders are going up and down. Miss Purvey was shaking her fist at me. I thought, what did I do wrong?
Well, when an octopus enters puberty, that's what happens. You know, those things drop, and his voice gets a little deeper.
And they become
start shooting ink, nocturnal emissions. No, it happens.
You know what I just recently discovered that I find fascinating is that Steve Hillenburg was a marine biologist. I mean, this is yes, maybe inspired by your clock falling show. I don't know, but he yes, Steve Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob.
Yes, whom I voiced since the beginning, 1996.
Would start out as a marine biologist who also had an interest in animation, albeit kind of abstract animation, not really anything to do with story or character. It was all just kind of visual, almost psychedelic. And he kind of married those two interests. He actually worked at a place called the Ocean Institute at Dana Point, down by San Diego,
right?
Teaching kids, like as a camp counselor kind of guy. And he made a little comic book for the kids to explain the life forms in the tide pool. And those characters that he made up were kind of the prototypes for the SpongeBob characters. Not exactly, but there was that's where it started. The drawings are similar enough that you can see that's where the roots are from this little comic book that he just handed out to kids at his job at Dana Point Ocean Institute.
It's amazing how we can't get away from these things.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, and that stuff that, and I always tell this to my kids and other kids when I, you know, read to kids at schools and stuff. What the stuff that grabs you when you're a kid and blows your mind, if you can find a way to turn that into a living wage, you know, you'll have the best job in the world. And you know, even if you don't, hang on to those interests because it'll, you know, again, it'll make you have a fulfilling, well-lived life if you just hang on to the stuff that you're into. You know, keep being interested in stuff.
Well, hence, you know, the title of the show, Paid to Dream, that you can, you know, do these things that you love.
Absolutely, and you know, I don't even know, you know, and it's nice to get paid to dream, but you know, dreaming for for free is not a bad thing either.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't discourage anybody from dreaming, no matter what they do.
Dreaming is good.
I know. I mean, I did that show between the Peter and Flip between the ages of 8 and 13, and then that part of my life sort of ended for a long time, and I was, gosh, I don't know. I was probably in my late 30s.
I'm 11 years old, and I'm over the hill.
I know. And then,
I've shot my my wad here. I'm over the hill at 11.
And then I did this Phantom 2012 or whatever, some cartoon series back in the late 80s. And
that was a King Features one. It was the Ghost Who Walks, the Jungle Hero, the Phantom.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a straight part. I was the Phantoms. I was the 29th Phantom. I was his father who would come.
Wow, see that was quite a bit before I was able to get into the voiceover game. It was a tough nut to crack for me, but I was always very aware of stuff that was out there. And, talking about, being paid to dream, I'm lucky enough to be doing the job that I always wanted to have as a kid. I wanted to be the voiceover guy. Mel Blanc was my idol. Dawes Butler was my idol. Stan Freberg was my idol, and that was the job.
And let's not forget Jack Mercer.
And Jack Mercer, Popeye.
Because you were a Salty Sam boy, weren't you?
I was. I loved Popeye. I'm still obsessed. I'm standing here in my office, which is just like wall to wall Popeye memorabilia, most of it from the 1930s. And for some reason, Popeye spoke to me, because I always thought that would be a tough pitch today. If you go into the executives at PBS or Nickelodeon and say, okay, here's the pitch. He's a sailor, he's had his eye poked out in a fight, and he has tattoos, and he eats a vegetable and beats the crap out of people. What do you think?
Now, wait, it gets even weirder. He has a child that he hasn't acknowledged as his own who has no legs.
That's true. Yes, Sweepy.
What's the deal with Sweepy? And do you think that's Olive Oil's kid?
Sweepy escaped from the set of Todd Browning's Freaks.
One of us.
Yeah, that's right. I never noticed Sweepy. What's under that little
nothing.
Baby blanket?
What if he's just this mouse? I think you hit it. I think he's the son of that guy with the mustache.
That's right, Prince Randy and the Human Caterpillar. Don't ask. See, this is the stuff the stuff that blows your mind when you're a kid that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything from algebra class, but I remember the real names of the actual freaks that were used in the 1930s movie Freaks. Why does one thing stick in your head and another thing just flies out of it instantly?
We will. What is that chant that they do when they come?
Yes. We'll accept you, Gooba Gaba.
Gooba Gaba.
The wedding scene.
Now, what do you know? How much do you know about Jack Mercer?
A little bit.
I was amazed. He was an in-betweener. He was an animator.
Exactly. He was one of those guys that was just kind of, doing the grunt work on the Max Fleischer cartoons in the 30s. And I guess, I don't know that I don't think he's the first voice of Popeye.
No, that's the interesting part. This is the guy a guy called Billy Costello, who was also known as Red Pepper
Sam. Yeah.
Exactly. And they fired him because that was when the production code came in, and people who were putting their ear to the speakers are going, "Are you aware of what Mr. Costello is saying?" Apparently, it was absolutely filthy, some of that
stuff. And you're going, Popeye's a sailor. Of course, come on.
Yeah, and he would just be muttering, and some people going, no, slow that down. So, and that was the end of Billy Costello, and Lou Fleischer was walking down the line one day where the animators were, and he heard this guy, Jack Mercer, singing I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. He went, "You're it, come on."
Great, come on, just keep it clean.
And Jack Mercer's wife was Olive Oil. I forget her name, but she.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine if
he divorced her, which doesn't surprise me.
If that happened today, it would be all over TMZ. It's the Popeye that's too hot for TV.
Well, now I want to go back. It's hard to find those really early ones. I think they've locked them up.
They have been reissued. I did commentary on one of the box sets that they finally put out. I don't know that they sold very well, but there's Yeah, there's a few box sets that I guess it must be Warner Brothers that owns it now. They were in copyright battles for a long time over just who owned those crazy 1930s, Max and Dave Fleischer Popeyes, which those were the ones that every TV station showed when you were a kid, and just because they were cheap for your local station to get, and they were so freaky and weird and bizarre and full of like cool syncopated 30s jazz music, and those were just really seminal for me.
Wow.
I was Popeye every year for Halloween for 7 years.
Now, was this did your mom make the costume, or was this something that was purchased?
No, my mother would try at that stuff, but she was hopeless. Great cook, a great mom, but not a seamstress. And I know how that
feels. Which is good, because you don't want to find those needles in the stew, by accident.
Yeah, voodoo Popeye costume. But I know how she felt now, because I live across the street and next door to two of the handiest guys in the world when it comes to household repairs and stuff, and I bloody can't do anything. I don't know which end of a hammer is up, and these guys will just put a deck on their house over a long holiday weekend. And I just stand there going, I changed the light bulb today. That's kind of cool, right, honey? Come on.
Well,
righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Come on, I remembered.
In the litany of those great voice guys, one name you didn't mention, and I wanted to bring it up, is Jim Backus. Oh, gosh, of course. Yeah, and he was great, Mr. Magoo. But I bring that up for a reason, because, lately I've been seeing a lot of, on TCM, we see a lot of RKO movies, and there's Jim Backus, who worked his butt off, from the late 40s into the early 50s until Magoo came into his life. And I don't know when you last saw Rebel Without a Cause. Very recently, actually. But there's a moment there where he falls into it. He's something. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Well, and he's wearing an apron. Yes. So it's like cross-dressing Mr. Magoo. Cross-dressing Mr. Magoo. And I thought, you are now... Annie Magoo. No matter what, whether, you do the complete David Mamet evening or whatever, you're going to have this SpongeBob guy. And I'm just wondering, have you ever found him coming out in a strange place? Ooh, that sounds painful. Well, that wonderful British... That British movie, Dead of Night, with the sequence with Michael Redgrave's the ventriloquist. Oh, sure. And that's sure, the ventriloquist dummy. Has SpongeBob ever come out inadvertently? It's funny. You realize that, I guess it's a little different than Jim Backus in that Magoo was quite close to his real voice. And so that timbre of Mr. Magoo was pretty much the timbre of Jim Backus. But luckily for me, I've kind of got this Nowheresville, white bread Syracuse voice that I can pitch up through my nose and put it right through there, bring it up really high, and then when I bring it down, it doesn't sound that much like me. Although, my point being that there are times where you realize that because you're starting, because me and SpongeBob have the same vocal DNA, so to speak, there are aspects of your real speaking that creep into the character. So there is a little bit of crossover, and people, I don't notice it, but people will go, wow, there was a little bit of SpongeBob coming into Tom there, coming out of Tom, or there's a little bit of Tom coming out of SpongeBob. And really that happens with almost any character you do. At first I used to go, oh gosh, I got to stamp out any trace of me in these voices, because if people ever start connecting the dots and realize that this voice and this guy and this voice and this person and the guy in this commercial and the guy that says, side effects may include diarrhea on this ad are all the same guy, that you're failing utterly. Like, my job is to be an undetectable chameleon, and if people are going, hey, I think that's also the guy that does this, so, and then I realized I was driving myself crazy, and then I said, nobody, Daffy Duck and Sylvester had the same lisp. They sort of sounded the same. Tweety was a little pitched up version of that. It's more about the acting and what you bring to the character and make it live that's priority one. And you've done a lot of voiceover, so and you're smarter than me, so it probably didn't take you
that long to put two and two together as it did me. Also, since you started when you were a fetus.
That's right.
You're in vitro radioactive.
The fetus complex about the whole. Now, tell me, do you ever dream about SpongeBob? No, I mean, does he? No, seriously, because I mean, he's a huge part of your life. Do you ever find yourself, do you recall? I mean, we forget our dreams so quickly, but has he ever turned up?
I've never been asked that question before.
But why would you? I asked the weirdest questions.
I know. I knew this would be a fun interview. Well, it's funny because you do spend so many of your waking hours being, SpongeBob and other characters too. Like SpongeBob is just one day of my week, and the other 4 days of the week you're running around doing other people on other shows. But SpongeBob is the longest lived, and I've been doing him the longest. And there's toys and there's video games and all this ancillary stuff that so he does wind up being a large part of your waking life and your waking hours. But I have never dreamed of him, and now I'm starting to wonder why. Why haven't I not?
I think that's very healthy.
I
think that really, that you've managed to leave him at the office, as it were.
Well, I also don't remember dreams that much. Something like my wife has these beautiful, lyrical, symbolically laden dreams where, she's talking to people that have passed away, and and you can, these dreams are so rich. You can dig through them and analyze them forever, and then, I'll have a dream that I'm brushing my teeth. I have the most prosaic, banal dreams.
Spartan dreams. You're a healthy man,
Really?
By the way, we should tell people that your
am.
wife is the lovely Jill Talley, a voice artist herself and a former Second City veteran.
Yes, she is a Southside Chicago gal.
And where did you guys meet?
We met, she had been on the main stage in Chicago's Second City. In the same.
She was with Steve Carell on stage.
She was with Steve Carell. She was with Chris Farley. She was with Bob Odenkirk. She was with Tim Meadows. That was her group. And then
Joe Liss as well.
What's that?
Joe Liss, was he around?
Oh, of course, yeah, the hilarious Joe Liss, who now is a writer in cartoons.
Man in the world.
Oh, he's really.
I was on stage with him for 8 weeks this past winter, and
doing room service.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's so funny.
Oh, he's there's some people that are just effortlessly funny, and that's always fascinating to me. I've known people that are drop dead funny on stage.
I know. I want to interview him, and he's amazed that I would even want to interview him.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying some people, they come off the stage and it's nowhere man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always heard that Peter Sellers was like that, right? Like just kind of like, his personality and his body are just like a vehicle for these other personalities that may or may not be the real him. I don't know, but somebody like Joe Liss is just fun, effortlessly funny in a way where it's not irritating. He doesn't, he's not a waka waka trying too hard guy. He is just effortlessly funny all the time, and I've known a lot of people like that, and I've known a lot of people the other way who are very adept at comedy. But when you're talking to them, you're like, wow, there is nothing remotely interesting or funny about this person when they're not doing their thing, Oh,
yeah. I mean, Bert Lahr, who was probably one of the funniest men to ever live, was just walking around in a total gloom all the time.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I come from the stand-up world, so, the gloomy, bitter comedian who, kind of raging against the world, Tears of a Clown type cliche is something that I saw many, many times, over the years. I was a stand-up. That's where I started out from before.
What was your act like? Because I never saw you do stand-up.
Oh, gosh. I can't bear to look at it now. But I was, very high energy, very hyperactive. I was much younger then, so I had like a big, crazy rooster haircut, a big, crazy pompadour, and a lot of pop cultural stuff, a lot of topical stuff, political stuff, character. I did a lot of characters, but not impressions. I I never really cared to be a celebrity impressionist. That was never really that interesting to me.
No.
But this is all very circuitous, but I would do characters that were just people I had seen, somebody I rode next to a bus on, or next to on a bus, or somebody I saw at the laundromat, and those were always way more interesting to me. And my mother was like that too. She was just a June Cleaver type housewife, but she was hilarious in the sense that she could instantly pick up on somebody's DNA and do a devastatingly funny impression of them, whether that's the neighbors, the ladies at church, the nuns at the school. She was really great at that, and I think that stood me in good stead, just kind of absorbing that from her.
And where was Dad in all this?
My dad had the very exciting and exotic job of being an accountant for Carrier Air Conditioning Company. And,
so he must wonder where you came from.
And he was funny in his own way too, in his own kind of wry, pipe smoking 1950s
Ward
way.
Cleaver.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I just called my mom June Cleaver, but I was going to say all roads lead to Beaver, but that sounds dirty. My dad was also a physical ringer for Hugh Beaumont.
Really? How amazing.
And looked like that until he died, a few years back at the age of 74. Same full head of like black, Brill cream hair. He kept the Ward Cleaver look going well into his 70s.
Speaking of the nuns back in Syracuse,
yes.
When you were in first grade, a nun in tears dragged a boy into your class and left him there.
Yes. This is a story that people always get a charge out of. But yes, I was in first grade in East Syracuse, New York, little Catholic school. But there were two first grades, and the nun from the other first grade, and I was 6 years old, comes dragging a crying boy by the ear, this little chunky kid, into our classroom. The nun is crying, he's crying, and she just says to our teacher, our nun, "Sister, can you take him, Sister Margaretta? I just can't deal with him anymore." And then she ran out of the room, and here's this little kid, Robert Goldthwait, later known as the comedian Bobcat Goldthwait, and I said, "Wow, I think I would really like to get to know this kid." And I think the interesting thing is that Bob was also crying. So he was that kid who was, he kind of had these urges, but he wasn't a jerk. He wasn't an a-hole. He felt bad. Well, why do I make the nuns cry? I'm just being me. And him and I became lifelong friends, as we are to this day.
I love that you said he was the class clown and you were the class clown's head writer.
That's true. I didn't really have the cojones to put myself out there. You know what I mean? I was half shy and half show off, and you know what I mean. Kind of having the desire to be the show offy guy that was making everybody laugh and had a crowd of people around him, but I didn't quite have the guts to do that. So I would scribble jokes on scraps of paper, like Mel Shavelson of the first grade, and give them to Bob, and just go, "Hey, say this during math class. I think it'll get a laugh." And
then something that seems to be ignored in any other interviews with you, you became the lead vocalist for a Syracuse band called the Tearjerkers.
Yeah, and everybody probably has this same story, right, where you're just goofing around in a small town, and there's some instruments lying around, and I was, Bobcat and I were very lucky, timing wise, in that we were in high school from 1976 to 1980, so there was just like this big revolution going on. It was kind of the next best thing to growing up in the 60s, with the Beatles or something, where 1976, in the midst of all this bloated corporate FM rock like Styx and Journey and all this stuff and REO Speedwagon, here comes the Ramones and here comes the Sex Pistols and here comes the Clash and the Fleshtones and all these bands that were really, wow, finally, here's bands that have the same kind of nervous energy as us pent-up suburban kids, you know. Wow, this is great. This has the energy of the stuff I hear on the oldies station, like Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis and stuff like that, but it's not old. It's current, you know. This is great. So there was that going on. Bobcat played, we were in a few different bands together. We were in a band called The Trend, where Bobcat played bass and I was the lead singer, and we just dressed crazy. And then I joined a band called the Tearjerkers. It was a Syracuse band that actually put out like a local single called Syracuse Summer that was like a fake Beach Boys record about surfing on the Erie Canal and all this stuff. But it you know, along with the music exciting stuff that was going on, there was a revolution in comedy and sketch comedy. So, you know, during that same period, Saturday Night Live is on the air, speaking of the revered Mr. Aykroyd, and SCTV. And those were just literally life-changing for me. SCTV, which since Syracuse is close enough to Canada, we were able to watch it on, what was it, CKWS maybe?
Yeah.
We were able to watch it on, you know, before NBC was carrying it here in the States.
With one of my, the beloved departed Catholic schoolboys, John Candy,
whom I never got to meet.
Really? Oh my God! I went to his stag party. I have pictures, never published, of John dancing with this belly dancer. Oh my God! It was so funny.
Well, you know,
he was a lovely man, lovely man.
Well, you know, returning to our theme, which we probably didn't even know was a theme about, you know, just being interested and engaged in things, and that stuff will save your life throughout your existence. When I came out here, I just happened to meet Pam Thomas, who at the time was married to Dave Thomas of SCTV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And she said, "You're funny, you know what I mean? What do you want to do? You know, are you interested in being on Saturday Night Live?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, Saturday Night Live's okay, you know, but what I'd really like to do is write with your husband, Dave." And she said, "Dave? You want, really?
Why?
That's your dream, to meet Dave?"
They're not married anymore, are they?
Exactly. And I said, "Yeah, you know, because I liked Saturday Night Live, but I always way preferred SCTV. I think maybe because they were able to do more because of the non-live format. You were able to just take things a little further and get a little crazier with the interweaving, you know, the Monty Python-esque interweaving of themes through the show. It was just a better ride, I thought. And Saturday Night Live could be great, but was much more hit and miss, and now it's mostly miss. But you know, so I wound up writing with Dave and doing stuff, and we still work together and do stuff. And you know, he's one of my favorite people. So, you know, this person that was on the show that you were idolizing when you were a teenager and going, wow, that's what my friends and I do when we're effing around.
Best Bob Hope ever.
These people are doing the exact same thing that we do. I didn't know that anybody else had this sense of humor. You certainly never saw it on TV. And then you go, wow, this is us. This is us. You know, the Sammy Maudlin show and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Those are things that me and my friends do when we're just hanging out, farting around. This is amazing. Other people have this sensibility, you know, and you realize that there's, you know, when
you belong to a club. It's like a secret handshake, and you can just, you're there.
Exactly. Well, in those pre-internet days, right? Like now with the internet, you know, anybody can go on and instantly be chatting with thousands of like-minded people. No matter how esoteric and bizarre your interest is, there's a community of people online that are into that thing. But, you know, growing up in a small, now it's not that Syracuse is a small town, but it had a little bit of a small town mindset. You know.
Hey, listen, it's got a great Rodgers and Hart song, for heaven's sake.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to. I guess what I mean is that it was the kind of place where saying that you wanted to have a career in show business was not a realistic goal that people took seriously. I don't know where you're.
It wasn't in Toronto in the 50s. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, forget it. I mean, now of course it's become this epicenter, and people go there and make movies, and it's a huge animation center now. Apparently.
Oh yes, well, absolutely, a lot of work there, and those people are, you know, are really great at it too. I mean, so many of the really great voice actors that are many of them wind up moving to Los Angeles, have Toronto roots.
And tell me, when you did Shakes the Clown with Goldthwait years later, I mean, how
1992 or something.
That to think that there you'd been, 30 years earlier, whatever, these kids. Here you were.
He somehow got money to make this movie, Shakes the Clown. He cast me as the bad guy, Binky, this cocaine snorting, psychotic clown. And Bob had never directed a movie before. I mean, maybe a couple of shorts, but he somehow got some money from IRS Films, which was an offshoot of the IRS record label that had the Go-Go's and the Fleshtones, the aforementioned Fleshtones. And he made this movie that this probably has to do with growing up in Syracuse too, which you don't really have a show business mindset. And I think I know that Bobcat thought that he was making a fairly mainstream, commercially viable movie. He really did. And then when the powers that be saw it, they were just kind of like, ooh. This is too weird. And I just remember the premiere, which they had at the TV Academy down on Lankershim.
Right.
That pink building down there on Lankershim Boulevard with
the Academy
statues of Milton Berle and stuff there.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball. I just remember it being perhaps the most dispirited film premiere that I've ever been to.
And yet Marty Scorsese was a champion for this film.
Absolutely.
He said it's the Citizen Kane of alcoholic clown movies.
Yes, exactly. That's a quote. And it's funny now. Like that.
Adam Sandler's in it. Robin Williams.
Adam Sandler, Robin Williams, Florence Henderson. Man, I mean, many.
It's become a cult film.
Well, it's funny. All these years later, that was 92 or 1992 or something, maybe.
Yeah,
I think so. Now, they did a screening at the Silent Movie Theater here in Los Angeles, which is run by a collective of very hip film fans called the Cine Family, CINE family, and they did a screening of Shakes the Clown, and Bob said, hey, you want to come down? They're showing Shakes the Clown at the Silent Movie Theater. It was packed. It was sold out. People couldn't get in. And, it was such a difference from, 1992 where the studio had, kind of set up, in keeping with the theme of the movie, they had set up, some carnival rides, like a Ferris wheel or tilt-a-whirl or something, and just everybody was just kind of walking around bummed out. And Bob was really depressed, oh, I think I might have screwed up, and it was, it just goes to show you. And now he's again with Robin. He did a movie called World's Greatest Dad that got great reviews, championed by Roger Ebert and all these people. And he's got a new one called God Bless America that's coming out. That's really, really great. Really, these are very low budget movies. He doesn't care about anything except getting these things made and getting them out the way he wants them to.
That's terrific.
He doesn't want to be. He doesn't care about Iron Man.
Well, I'd love to have him on the show. Maybe.
Oh gosh, he'd love
to do
it.
it. That'd be great.
Oh, he'd love to do it. He'll be pimping God Bless America very soon. Well, it's funny. I went to the premiere of Transformers 3 last night, which I'm in, as voicing a couple of robots, and I was having been on the set of Bob's movie. I was just like, wow, what a difference in tone and attitude and working mindset,
and how about for another change? How about your newest movie, which is opening, Winnie the Pooh?
Oh yes. Transformers opened, I think, on the 29th of June, and Winnie the Pooh opens on July 9th or 10th or something. I don't know, sometime in July, early July. And yes, I inherited the part of Rabbit, which had been done. By a few different people over the years, but I somehow inherited it. They decided they wanted to do something new with Rabbit. So yeah, it's my first foray into the Pooniverse.
There you go, the Pooniverse. Well, the other thing we haven't talked about before we leave each other, because God knows we have lives to live, the spelling bee, the Carpenter Avenue Spelling Bee, hosted by Tom Kenny. And I've always been grateful to you because my daughter Ethne was there down to the wire.
She's a champ.
With that girl from Australia. And we couldn't understand a word that girl said. No one had the guts to say, "Excuse me, what vowel is that?" And you and Donald Logue, you guys you were just there for my kid because she was almost in tears because
she was. Well, it's upsetting, right? You go so far. And I, although I wasn't good at sports, I was pretty damn good at spelling bees.
Yes, I mean that's it.
So I understand when you.
And because of that, when our kids moved on to Walter Reed, I got onto the spelling bee committee because I said, I'm not going to allow somebody to... That was the other thing, was the woman reading it. I couldn't understand what the hell she was saying.
Yes, well, then they had me start doing that in subsequent years, and I just was like, and there's so much pressure because parents are wound up and the kids are wound up, and you're going... I was just trying to do my best ultra-clear Alex Trebek...
or Alex Dreyer is the other one.
Pronunciation. Yeah, I was just, he's a Canadian too, isn't he, Alex Trebek?
Yes, he is.
We always have to name check Canadians on Paid to Dream. And Syracuse is kind of a bedroom community of Canada.
It's an honorary Canadian city. But I dragged Ed Asner into Walter Reed this year to read the words. I said, I don't want this to happen again, because it turned out this was a huge thing this year that I got myself into.
Were the children scared of him?
Oh, they left it.
I don't want Lou Grant.
Mr. Fredrickson. They don't know about Lou Grant.
Oh, that's true. Well, Mr.
And Santa Claus and Elf.
Too.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Fredrickson just slammed the door on you.
Yeah.
But he was great. He was very funny. God. Well, he's another Second City grad too, which people don't.
Yes, he is. Well, I always kind of regretted that I never went that route because my wife growing up in Chicago, that was a goal, to get into Second City. Whereas with me, growing up in this snowy place full of biker bars, we sort of had to, there was no institution that you could go and do it at. So, me and Goldway just went to this biker bar. We were teenagers. We were literally teenagers and went to this biker bar on a Tuesday night and said, look, there's nobody in here. There's one guy shooting pool. What do you say you give us a couple of weeks to try and do a comedy night here, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and if it does work, there's people buying your alcohol. And he said, yeah, okay, whatever. And it turned into, kind of a big thing in Syracuse. We're doing sketch comedy. And, so we kind of my wife and I kind of came at it from different points. But to answer your question from an hour and a half ago, she and I, because of those two paths, see, this is all closure. I watch enough Oprah to know that you have to have closure.
That's it.
That, we met on the set of a very short-lived Fox television sketch show called The Edge that is most notable for being one of Jennifer Aniston's first gigs. And so occasionally they'll show a clip of it on Before They Were Stars.
Yes.
So my wife. So once in a while, I'll get a 30-cent check from Before They Were Stars, and the show that my wife and I met on is best known as being the failed show that Jennifer Aniston did right before Friends.
Well, now it's for me to get us out of this thing. You have not. You failed upward from there. God knows.
Thank you. Well, that's what life is all about. Is just kind of acting like you know what you're doing and failing upwards. And if you're going to be in a spelling bee, use a phony accent to muddy the judge's mind.
Yeah, my God, I just shake my head all the way.
That should be the takeaway for the kids. If you're going to be in a spelling bee, use a phony accent. It'll help you.
Tom Kenny, God bless. Thank you so much.
I love you, and I look forward to doing part 2 of this interview tomorrow.
Okay, bye-bye.
The mini-series. Bye. 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 Bye.